Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Before we bring on Dr. Kim Moore, I'd love it if everyone could share where they're viewing this from. Where are you in the world? Where are you in the U.S.? In the comment section, just shoot in your location, what city and state you're viewing this from. We'd really love to hear from you. Go ahead, put some notes in the comment section. Let us know where you're viewing from. Wow, people are all over the country. It's exciting, all over the world. If you're here for the leadership chair, success strategies for women in leadership, then you're in the right place. Today, we'll be sharing 3 key learning areas that every leader needs to address to be more effective in their leadership role. We'll specifically be focusing on personal branding, influencing for change, and communicating with power. So if you're ready to hear from Dr. Kim Moore as she shares her most powerful leadership principles with us, then go ahead and type "I'm ready" in the comments section. Go ahead. I'm ready. If you're ready to jump in and learn, go ahead and type that in. Oh, wow. We're getting comments from all over. Thank you so much for that. I love it. So many of you are ready. So without further ado, let's bring on Kim Moore. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Celeste. I am so glad to be with you and all the listeners and viewers today. It looks like we have a great crowd.
Yes. So many leaders are joining us from around the world. And this is so exciting. Not that Kim needs a great introduction, but I'm going to give her one anyway. Dr. Kim Moore is an executive director and founding member of the Maxwell Leadership Team. She's a retired U.S. Army officer who specialized in nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare. After her military service, she briefly worked in corporate America before transitioning to education, where she held leadership roles as a teacher, administrator, principal, director, assistant superintendent, and superintendent. Dr. Moore holds advanced degrees in administration and educational leadership, including a doctorate in educational leadership from Nova Southeastern University. She's passionate about leadership and education, and she leads by example, inspiring others to excel. Today, she'll be teaching us about the leadership chair, success strategies for women in leadership. Now, I shared earlier that today's masterclass will be focusing on 3 areas of leadership development: personal branding, influencing for change, and communicating with power. So let's start with personal branding. And chapter 3 of your brand new book, Kim, You're in the Leadership Chair, Now What? Which releases actually today. You talk a lot about this subject. In fact, the title for chapter 3 is Manage Your Brand. And I love how you say your personal brand reflects who you are and what you stand for. So, Kim, let's start with the basics here. What would you say is the starting point for understanding personal branding and how it affects how far you can go in your leadership?
Well, thanks, Celeste. Let's begin by saying that even though it's only a part of branding, your reputation is probably the most valuable thing that you have. I remember reading in a 2014 Forbes article that Katrina Walter wrote, "In business, your reputation is the only currency that matters." And I believe that is still true today. So let's talk about your reputation. You may be able to buy that in the short term, but it rarely works for the long game. So this means that if you experience a major financial downturn, but your reputation is still intact, you will be able to work yourself back to the top. You know, many extremely wealthy people have experienced at least one bankruptcy. However, if your reputation is in tatters, well, you better hang on to what you've got because few people are going to trust you enough to give you a second chance. This is why I tell people to always be wise in the choices of people they associate with, even if they appear successful. You see, we tend to become like those people with whom we spend the most time. Even if we think we are different from our friends, People often believe we share our associates' values. So wise people do not judge others by their material possessions. Remember, it's not about what you own. It's about who you are. That same warning for wise choices also applies to what you say, where you go, and the activities you participate in. One key to not saying the wrong thing is to keep an open mind. When you pass judgment on someone, you close your mind, and it's too easy once that negative seed is planted for you to slip and say something that you may later regret. In fact, I really like what Chris Drucker says. Your personal brand is what people say about you when you are not in the room. Remember that.
Yeah, that's a great quote. It's worth repeating. And I think the viewers and listeners should definitely write this one down. We'll put it on the screen here. Your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Yes, and I talk about this in the book. But men are typically good at branding themselves. They easily and enthusiastically communicate their abilities, strengths, and successes. If you think back and compare the behavior of little boys and little girls, the boys were far more often the ones to be yelling out, "Hey, look at me!" regardless of their level of ability for whatever it was they were trying to do. Walking on the roof, "Hey!" If that was the way to get attention, that was exactly where they were, and making a lot of noise about it as well. Women, not so much. You see, women tend to be more modest or even silent about who they are, what they can do, and what they have done. To succeed as leaders, women need to brand themselves better by communicating their skills and achievements. Now, this can be tricky.
Oh, so true, Kim. I'd like to poll our viewers and our listeners. And if you want to be better at branding yourself, then go ahead and drop a one in the comment section. I'll take a second there. If you want to be better at branding yourself, then just put a one in the comment section. Now, Kim, can you give us some of the very basics of branding?
Yes, but let me begin by saying brand is a function of both what you say and do, and how you say and do it. With that as a foundation, there are 7 brand basics that I want to make sure every female leader understands and practices. First is to strive to be fair, ethical, and firm. So you should always try to be fair, ethical, and firm. Know at your core who you are, what you stand for, and what you will not do. It's very important to stick to your values, but always in a courteous, respectful way. Always take the high road. Next, seek out respected mentors and advocates who will guide and promote you. People will listen more to what other people say about you than to what you say about yourself. Seek out and build relationships with associates with positive attitudes who tend almost always to speak well of others. Those who speak badly of others to you, well, they are more likely to speak badly of you to others. And those who speak well of others to you are far more likely to speak well of you to others. Number 4 is Speak well of others yourself. If asked, always try to find something positive and substantial to say about another person. Doing this may require you to reorient old thinking patterns. If you say one thing and think another, well, that other thought will invariably come out, usually when you are under stress. And you can do a lot of damage to yourself and others. So learn to think positively about people, even if only in small ways, and even about people who don't seem to think or do things the way you do.
Kim, that's so good. But I have to admit that speaking well of others, especially when others aren't around, is kind of hard for some people. What does it take for most people to make that change?
Well, I think it starts with understanding something very simple. People in general are doing the best they can with what they have. Unless you know them very well on an individual basis, you have very little idea of the challenges they have faced in the past or the challenges they face today. So promoting the positive can help them feel better about themselves and may even encourage them to perform better and eventually align themselves with you. Even if they don't come around, you will feel better about yourself for not behaving in a way that is mean and small spirited when you later find out why they acted the way they did.
Yeah, that's great advice. So we've covered the first four of the seven branding basics. So tell us about five, six, and seven.
Well, certainly, Celeste. Number 5 is volunteer for challenging high profile projects. Men are more likely to do this than women. So I want you to break the mold and get noticed. Next is sign and date your work. Always, always do this. If asked why you always put your name on your work, explain that you're doing so makes it easier for people to get back to you for clarification or for more information. Your personal reason for signing your work is that it provides ownership tracking. The date helps you to more clearly identify the most current version. Finally, if you are wrong, admit it, apologize, and confirm that you will work quickly to correct the problem. It's better to own the problem and its solutions than to have others chattering on about your error and the fact that you left the mess for others to clean up.
Love it. Love it. A question for all of our viewers and listeners. If you're getting value from today, then show Kim some love by putting some of your thoughts in the comment section. Now, while we're still on the topic of personal branding, in your brand new book, which is available today, you give 6 tips for building brand loyalty. Can you give us a rundown of those?
Absolutely. But first, I need to give you the context. When I was commissioned into the United States Army, I was required to attend an intense 6-month training program. Now, I remember my first day in the class. My classmates and I stood at attention in our new uniforms as our instructors entered the room. As we sat down, I remember being so excited and afraid. Our instructors explained what the next 6 months would be like. The picture they painted reminded me of the old war movies I once watched with my grandfather when I was a child. Well, over the next 4 hours, we reviewed the Army's history, learned the Army song, and recited the Soldier's Creed. As we walked to lunch, I found myself humming the Army song. My classmates and I, well, as we sat at lunch, we were wondering what the afternoon would bring. When we began our afternoon, our instructor informed us that we would spend the next 4 hours learning the Army's 7 core values. What are the Army's core values? I know that's what you're wondering. Let me tell you. Loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. Loyalty is the first core value of the U.S. Army. We were told that as soldiers, we were to bear true faith and allegiance to the United States Constitution, the Army, our unit, and other soldiers. The instructor paused, then said, "We wear our uniforms to express our loyalty," he said. Now, why did we spend so much time studying the Army's values? Because they define the Army brand. Our uniform is one symbol of the Army's brand. Our brand is based on our core values. Our shared values bind us together in loyalty. So let me ask you a question. Can your personal brand create loyalty? Well, absolutely. Susanna Vera offers the following 6 tips for building loyalty for your brand. First, be better than anyone. Next, create a sense of belonging, followed by building credibility. Number 4 is be accessible. Connect with others is number 5. And number 6 is to be proactive in meeting your customers' needs. You see, for your personal brand to create loyalty, you must define and model your core values. That is, for you to get others to be loyal to your brand, you need to be loyal to your brand and act according to your professed core values. Your core values and how well you express them will determine how others view you. So if your actions are inconsistent with your values, you're not being loyal to your values, and you can hardly expect loyalty from anyone else. As a leader, your ability to build loyalty will determine how successful you are at achieving your goals. So building a strong personal brand can create strong loyalty. However, you cannot expect others to be loyal to you if you are not loyal to them. If you build strong bonds of loyalty, your personal brand can be as powerful as the United States Army.
Wow. I think that's what we all want too. Everyone on the call needs to get a copy of this book because in it you talk about using story to define your brand. And if people are familiar with Donald Miller's work, Story Brand, his book, this section will really resonate with them. Now, before we close this section, give the readers and listeners, Kim, some tips on managing their personal brand story or brand message.
First, have a clear idea of your values. Develop a strategy and a plan for developing a cohesive message. Then, design a communication plan to get out your message. Thomas Smell offers the following 5 ways to help you deliver your message. Be yourself. Your brand reflects you. What makes you different? Authenticity is important. So create your voice and be you. Next, speaking. Seek out opportunities to speak on a regular basis. Speak with confidence from a place of knowledge and power. Writing is the next area, and that area we want to shape your brand through your written communication. The ability to communicate effectively is critical. Here's one of my personal favorites: your online presence. Manage your social media profile. Create a professional persona through your website, domain, and social media sites. Remember, your digital footprint is forever. And my last tip is be a lifelong learner. Continue to grow and sharpen your skills.
Yes, that's wonderful. You've always taught me to be a lifelong learner. And speaking of lifelong learning, reading books is a great way to grow and sharpen your skills. And while we get ready for the next segment, check this out.
To the inspiring female leaders in my audience, listen up. My friend Dr. Kim Moore knows what it takes to get a seat at the table, and her experience will inspire you and her advice will challenge you. That's why you need to get her book. You're in the leadership chair. Now what? And while you're at it, pick up a few more copies for your close friends who want to be taken seriously as leaders. I can't wait for you to be changed as a result of reading this book.
Yes, as you've just learned, Kim Moore's brand new book release today. It's called You're in the Leadership Chair. Now what? And all you have to do is to go to leadershipchair.com and click on buy now. Buy now. If you order 5 or more copies, you get included in the 3-week book club, which is coming in November, where Kim will be leading readers through her new book. So go to leadershipchair.com chair, chair.com, and click on the Buy Now button. You'll be taken to Amazon.com where you can buy an unlimited number of books and copies of the book for all of your friends. So now let's get back to today's masterclass. Kim, we're jumping into the next segment now, which is leveraging your influence to inspire change. Most of what we're going to talk about today comes from chapter 7 of your new book, and that chapter is entitled Become an Influencer.
Yes, and we begin that chapter by discussing winning people over. You know my mentor, John C. Maxwell. Well, he is famous for saying, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And I believe that what the world needs is good leaders, people who can inspire others to do good things. Thankfully, there are some amazing and inspirational influencers out there who use their platforms to reach out and promote good, supporting education, the environment, human rights, and other social causes. Some people do it so right. That's why I spend time in the book talking about winning people over. In 1936, Dale Carnegie published one of the best-selling self-help books of all time, How to Win Friends and Influence People. What he said is still relevant today. So here are 9 of his lessons to help you be a better leader and influencer. First, don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Always talk about your own mistakes first. Try to understand. Next, show interest in other people. Research other people's interests. Encourage them to talk about their passions. Don't try to make them interested in you. And most importantly, be sincere. Followed by, be a good listener. You see, your ability to listen marks you as a good conversationalist. Spend 25% of your time talking, 75% listening. You will learn more. Number 4 is win someone to your way of thinking by getting them to say yes immediately to at least 2 things that are common ground. Followed by ask questions instead of giving direct orders or demanding. Number 6 is show respect for others people's opinion. Ask people for their advice. Never tell someone they are wrong. Inspire people to be open by admitting that you may be wrong. If you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically to minimize repercussions. Suggest big punishments so the other person will go to bat for you. That's number 7. And number 8 is use encouragement to empower the other person. Give frequent, honest praise. Make it a daily habit. Make it public. And last but not least, talk in terms of others' interests. Be honest. Never promise more than you can deliver.
That's great, Kim. In that same chapter, you have a section about how leaders inspire change. Walk us through what our viewers and listeners need to know about that chapter.
Well, first, let's start with the premise that people can change their behavior or strive to affect changes in their situations or environments for a variety of reasons. Self-managed behavioral changes are the changes people make on their own to get what they want and include their efforts to change. So first, things in their own lives or in the lives of significant others that cause discomfort or have the potential to cause future discomfort. Next is things in their own lives or the lives of significant others they want to improve, or things they can see that they can do for other people, usually easily, that will get positive attention or provide them with a feel-good payback. Now, self-managed changes can first and foremost improve quality of life. Next, they can stop bad habits and start good habits, followed by complete challenging activities and or achieve goals. Leaders who inspire others to change their behavior are influencers. So aside from self-managed behavioral change, people change their behavior in response to what I will call primary and secondary influences. So primary influence is where an individual becomes a follower through direct interaction with or observance of an influencer.
Good. I love that. So, Kim, that's primary influence, right? But what about secondary influence?
Examples of secondary influence might be media coverage of an influencer's activities. For example, written news stories, books, other people's blogs, and public opinion statements, live or streaming TV and radio program biographical coverage, recorded critiques, documentaries, TV clips, news clips, and YouTube videos of people discussing their work.
Thanks, Kim. Now, in your book, you mentioned seven things that help a leader affect change as an influencer. Can you give us a rundown of those seven?
Of course. Here's the question I put to the reader. How can you inspire others to team with you to achieve your desired outcomes? Now, with that in mind, here are the 7 essentials of affecting change as an influencer. We start with listen to find out what people need. If you don't care enough to find out what people need, you're putting all your efforts into a guess. If that guess does not match what other people want or need, they are not going to care about the outcome. So your chances of success, pretty small. Next is use open-ended questions to gather information. This is where you may get surprises that can help you find a solution or may tweak the direction so that you have a better chance of reaching your goal. The third is to welcome involvement. If people can picture themselves as a part of the solution, they become vested in the outcomes. Followed by be respectful and flexible. So don't act the part of the expert. You are a facilitator, relying on the input of the on-the-ground experts who know the true work situation. Number 5 is be transparent, open, and honest. Attempting to hide behind half-truths does not work long term. When people find out that you have been slippery with the truth, and it is a matter of when and not if, people will stop trusting you. How can you be as a leader if people don't trust you? And how fast do you think you can regain that trust? Well, it may take a lot longer than what you expect. Now, I will pause for dramatic effect and to make sure everyone hears this next one. Don't lay blame. Ever. Blaming focuses on the past, about which nothing can be changed. So if you allow, or worse, promote an environment of blame, you create an environment of fear and set yourself up for failure. The full truth rarely comes out in a witch hunt environment.
Very good. In fact, Kim, if you don't mind, let's camp out here for a minute because I think this is a real problem in many circles. What can you share with listeners and viewers to really help them understand why laying the blame is so detrimental to leadership?
We can start with the sheer fact that problems can be complex. When people focus on the one thing or person that caused the problem, they often don't see the multiple inputs and interrelated chains of event that need to be corrected. So the problem does not happen again. Now, maybe someone made a mistake. Were they properly trained? Whose responsibility was that? How long since the training was updated? Has the technology changed faster than the training protocols? Was the individual being asked to do so or to do too much in too short of a period of time and without reasonable support? You see from those questions, blaming paralyzes teams and fractures relationships. People worry more about where the blame finger will point instead of how to correct the problem. Fixing efforts stagnate. Relationships crumble as people dive into defense mode and morale plummets. So in the long run, you lose. Instead of trying to find someone to blame, focus on what can be done now, in the present, to solve the problem and improve things in the future. This requires you to be honest about the situation, your goals, and the consequences of solving the problem or not solving the problem. Then, pull your team together to find, evaluate, and fix the root cause.
Excellent. So now that we've covered the first six, what's the seventh and final essential of affecting change as an influencer?
It is do what you say you will do. Don't overpromise. Good surprises are always better than bad surprises.
Thanks, Kim. Before we go into segment 3, let's give our viewers and listeners a chance to order your brand new book. You're in the leadership chair. Now what? Watch this.
To the inspiring female leaders in my audience, listen up. My friend Dr. Kim Moore knows what it takes to get a seat at the table, and her experience will inspire you and her advice will challenge you. That's why you need to get her book. You're in the leadership chair. Now what? And while you're at it, pick up a few more copies for your close friends who want to be taken seriously as leaders. I can't wait for you to be changed as a result of reading this book.
Kim, what's your challenge to everyone attending the masterclass today?
Well, Celeste, my challenge is to remember that while classes are great, you learn more when you have the textbook. So go to leadershipchair.com and click Buy Now, and from there, you can secure your copies of my new book. And I hope to see you in the book club. Remember, all you need to get free entry into my November book club is to order 5 or more copies of the book today. And yes, with each copy, you get to invite the person you're giving a copy to the book club.
Awesome. I will make sure that I purchase my 5 copies. I have my 4 friends in mind, and I will certainly be at the book club in November, joining you and getting all this wisdom. So now let's jump back into the last section of the masterclass, which is all about communication. The secret to great leadership communication is what we're going to talk about now. And this is in your book. The chapter is Building a Powerful Communication Foundation.
Certainly. Well, let's begin with this truth. Powerful communication requires that you have an in-depth knowledge and or experience that will be of value to others, that you understand the impact of the channels you choose to disperse your message, and that you know how to draw out others and connect with them to gain influence. So here are some key points. The information we communicate, most importantly, know what you are talking about. That is so important. True in-depth knowledge requires experience and or extensive open-minded research and careful validation of curated information. You need good, solid data from reputable sources. Keep track of these sources because there is hardly anything worse than being challenged on something that you have presented and not being able to quickly produce your source material, your experiential evidence, or experimental data. When you can't find that one critical piece of source information, people may question whether what you are saying is true or whether you just made it up. Why? Because today, too many people produce fake news. So simple rules to maintain credibility: don't lie, don't make things up, and use credible resources. When searching for information, be prudent. Be prudent in your selection of knowledgeable sources. Dig deep to avoid biases and secondary linkages to unreliable organizations and affiliations. The ability to connect is a skill that can be learned. John Maxwell has written extensively and spoken hundreds of times on the importance of communication and the power of connection. I have found his books to be an invaluable resource in my personal and career journeys. You can connect with others if you're willing to get off your own agenda, to think about others, and to try to understand who they are and what they want. That quote comes from John Maxwell. On his blog, he emphasized the importance of connecting on a one-to-one basis. And he says it should be 80 to 90% of All connections should happen at this level. So, to warm up your audience and start the process of connection, the next time you speak, John Maxwell recommends that you first let your listeners know that you are excited to be with them. Next, communicate that you desire to add value to them, followed by let them know how they or their organization add value to you. And last but not least, tell them your time with them is your highest priority that day. And yes, I go into a lot more detail in chapter 11 of my book, which I hope everyone joining us today will go out and get.
Yes, I agree. All the viewers and listeners just need to go to Leadership Chair, CHAIR, leadershipchair.com, and click Buy Now on that page. You'll be directed to Amazon.com where you can pick up as many copies as you want. But again, keep in mind that anyone who orders 5 or more copies will receive entry into Kim's exclusive Leadership Chair book club, which will start in November. Before we end this segment, and to reward everyone in this masterclass who has stayed into the end, can you give the viewers and listeners vital communication practices for effective leadership?
I would be honored to, Celeste. But first, some vital context. Unfortunately, we all get bad news. And as much as we don't like receiving bad news, well, it can be even harder to communicate that kind of message. We often worry about what to say, how to say it, when to say it, and how the message will be received. Will what we say be met with tears, anger, maybe even denial? And then what? Well, 5 years ago, my husband and I received what many would consider devastating news. You see, I was diagnosed with cancer. I remember sitting in the doctor's office as she shared the test results. Once my doctor finished speaking, she paused to wait for our response. In his normal tone of voice, my husband asked, "What are the next steps?" So for the next 20 minutes, we discussed the treatment plan. As we prepared to leave, my doctor told us she was surprised by our response to the diagnosis. She told us that most patients got very emotional. However, our response had been calm, a matter of fact. You see, sharing distressing diagnosis and or prognosis is an integral part of many doctors' practices. Some doctors are better than others at delivering bad news. Now, you may be wondering why. Because they understand the ebb and flow of communication and the importance of listening, speaking, observing, and reacting intuitively. However, in this situation, my doctor was wondering, how did my husband and I respond so calmly to my cancer diagnosis? Well, we explained, we are people of faith. God granted us the peace that surpasses all understanding. He blessed us with great doctors, and I am happy to report that I am cancer free.
Wow, I love it. Thank you so much, Kim. I have enjoyed spending this time with you, and I've also enjoyed spending time with all of our viewers and listeners. So we're coming to the end of our masterclass, and I just want to remind you one last time that we'll be having a leadership book club, and if you would like to join us, All you have to do is go to leadershipchair.com and click on Buy Now. And if you order 5 copies of the book, then you and 4 of your friends will be able to join our book club. I'm so excited about the opportunity, and I look forward to seeing you there.
To the inspiring female leaders in my audience, listen up. My friend Dr. Kim Moore knows what it takes to get a seat at the table, and her experience will inspire you and her advice will challenge you. That's why you need to get her book. You're in the leadership chair. Now what? And while you're at it, pick up a few more copies for your close friends who want to be taken seriously as leaders. I can't wait for you to be changed as a result of reading this book.